Hello, Devlin here with you, and welcome to another edition of my pirate radio show. And I hope you're doing well today. Thank you for pressing play and listening in. I am very excited about this episode. Not excited as in, I'm going to just talk about exciting stuff. I've got actually a little bit of everything to talk about today, some of it quite heartfelt, some of it, movie reviews, and some of it just kind of me thinking off the top of my head. But why I'm excited about it is because it's been a couple of weeks since I've actually got a chance to talk like this, because I took a couple of weeks off and we had the Count come in and do some music one of those weeks, and last week I did my best of. So it's been quite a bit. And before that, I even had my Christmas episode, so I haven't really been able to sit and talk, which is probably a good thing because it gave me a chance to think of a whole bunch of things I'd like to deal with in the next couple of weeks. And this one, I'm going to do this one first because it's a very emotional one for me, and it's not like something I do regularly. I do always talk about people I care about and love, but I don't usually go into great details of people when they pass away. And over the holidays, in December, I lost a very good friend, and I'd like to celebrate him because of the fact that him and his family have touched my life in such a big way in the last little while. His name was Joe Distel, and I actually known him for quite a while. I met him. My brother and his wife were friends with him. They all met because of the Barry Manilow fan club. Whereas I met most of my friends, later friends through the staircase, he met a lot of great friends through the Barry Manilow fan club. Yes, I'm outing my brother Paul as a Barry Manilow fan. But he actually met some wonderful people, and a lot of them became my friends. And Joe Distel was one of them, and his wife eventually, Lori, also is somebody I met through the Barry Manilow fan club. I knew Joe and Lori for quite a long time, but I didn't, they were kind of acquaintances. I wouldn't really call them friends. They were like people I enjoyed seeing, but it wasn't until a couple of years ago when my Corda's parents have these wonderful ice cream parties. And Joe and Lori, now married for quite a while now, and have two lovely girls, Piper and Chloe. And I got a chance to meet all of them. And the one thing I love about them is they're all quite quirky in their own ways, and they all fit together. And it's a wonderful little family because they all have their own personalities, and they're all very different, but in the same way, there's a lot of similarities, and that's what happened. And we got, to know Joe and Lori a lot better. Mike and I actually, saw them a couple of times after, and we'd have good laughs. We talked a lot about celebrity deaths and music and old TV shows. And I won't get into it now, but Joe had the opportunity to work with Martin Short, and that was a nightmare the stories were just so awesome, though, for us, Mike and I, that every time we watch Martin Short, not only do we laugh at how ridiculous he is, but at the fact we curse his name for what he put our poor Joe through. And so anyhow, so we've really gotten a chance to get to know this family to the point that I would definitely call them friends now. We look forward to seeing them. And then we got to know them even better. But unfortunately, it was under a sad occasion. See, one of the ice cream parties, I remember vividly that Joe was telling me he was dealing with some severe back problems, and they just weren't going away, and Lori was basically forcing him to go. So he was actually going to go to the appointment, I think a day or two after the ice cream party. And a couple days later, we heard that Joe was diagnosed with brain cancer. And the bad back wasn't even anything to do with that. So they live out in Cambridge. I hope I got that right. And they would come in for Joe's treatments here to Hamilton. And because after the treatments they took so much out of him, a lot of times they would go to Terry and Martin's. And a couple of very lucky times we came over and joined them for dinner or just to chat. And we got to know them even more. And what I loved is the spirit of this family. They're going through this really heartbreaking time, and I'm a crier, so I knew I wasn't going to get through this one without crying. But anyhow, the spirit of this family was incredible. They're two young daughters. I don't know their ages. I believe, Piper right now is about 15. I think Chloe has got to be in around 8 or 9. I apologize if they're listening to this, if I got it wrong. But anyhow, they were very open to talk about it. But every time they talked about it, there was a positive spin to it. And that's what I loved. I remember a moment when we all were in the pool together, or just a couple of us were, and I remember Chloe asking Joe if he's going to lose his hair. And I remember Joe just dealing with it like, well, I'm going to have to wear hats maybe, but I don't know if I will. And, and they just talked about it openly, and the braveness of this family when I'm sure they had their moments of weakness, but they supported each other through it all. And it was just so amazing to see. Because sometimes in life you just don't think you'd ever have that strength. And to me, it was just amazing. And we still laughed. We still had some good times. And Joe, even though his character started changing a little bit because of it, it was still dealt with and stuff. And, we didn't see Joe for a little while. And we had heard rumors that he had taken some turns for the worst. And, they're also a very private family, which I hope they don't mind that I'm talking about this now. And I opened up my Facebook one December morning this past December, and Lori wrote a beautiful thing that just said, I'm paraphrasing, I don't know but this is close. I lost my special person in my life today. I'm not going to tell you how awesome he was, because if you knew him, you would already know. And if you didn't, you missed out on something big. And that's how I found out Joe had passed. I went to the wake, and I couldn't even imagine what they were going through. And not the wake, but the viewing. I guess they call it a wake. I think that's different. But so Mike and I were so hoping that we could go, and luckily it worked out that I was able to go. They made arrangements, which they don't always do, so I'm very thankful for them. And we got a chance to go there, and you never know how viewings are going to go. I love viewings. No, don't get me wrong. It's not like I love to see these. Not like that in any sort of way. And but what I like about them is that I think they're really important. I've talked in the past on this podcast about funerals and how I believe they are important. And when people tell me, "Oh, I don't want a funeral," I usually tell them they're not for you. You may have your name all over the place and your pictures and all this, but honestly, the funeral is for the people you're leaving behind, and they do need it. Whether you want to admit to it or not, it is a good thing. And what I like about the viewings is that you see people coming who affected this one life affected all these people, family, friends, neighbors, former co-workers. And it's an amazing thing. I didn't want to do my mother and father's, but when I finally saw the people that were reached, people we hadn't even contacted were showing up, and we're like, how did you find out? And we were so happy that they came to give their condolences and just support their love. So when we went in, we didn't know what to expect, you know, but it was such a positive feeling. It was, first of all, they held it in their church, which is an amazing spot. I'm not the most religious man in the world. I do have my beliefs. I've talked about it in the past, but this church, I love when you go into a church, and I usually get two feelings. Number one, I get like the big, grandiose, oh my God, look at this. It's a huge church. This was a little community church that was so welcoming. It was so welcoming. Like if I lived in that neighborhood, I'd honestly consider dropping in a couple of times because I'd want to see if it is as welcoming as the building itself was. And then Lori was there, you know, and viewings are tough because you kind of are hosting it and you're falling apart too. It's kind of funny, like you have to be strong for other people, even though they're coming to be strong for you. And it's the weirdest feeling. It's probably, I remember breaking down a lot through my parents' thing. The viewings I felt I didn't break down as much due to the fact that there was just so much love in the room. But I also felt like because I was hosting it. So anyhow, Joe had a nice little, you know, goodbye and stuff. And then the family that had a thing. The two girls were holding up really strong, but I found out later that, you know, obviously because of what Joe was going through, he had dealt with a lot to the months ahead. So you're almost at the point where, you know, it's a blessing and sadness. So I could understand. But, you know, Piper, you know, such a young lady of strength that, you know, she's just going to be a wonderful character. She's definitely got the best of both worlds in Joe and Lori. And just such a strong young lady for her mother and stuff. Chloe was just wonderful. She's just so sweet, like the essence of sweetness. She was reading her principal had brought in a whole bunch of letters, and she was reading all the letters the kids had made. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful young child, and I can't wait to see what she's like when she grows up. The reason I wanted to talk about Joe, and mostly because it was the Joe and his family, and if you knew Joe, it was about his family. Because I felt them, like even when they were going through the darkest times, I was inspired by them because they were just trying to keep things positive, and I know how hard that is. You know, if you listen regularly, how hard I have to deal with that, and to see another family, it was just so nice to see that you can find that strength in time. And I really didn't think I'd be affected as much. Like, as much as I became a good friend of Joe, I didn't think I'd be as affected. But because it blindsided me, and it's funny when you blindside, you know somebody's dying, but you still are shocked when they die. That's, you know, what I call blindsided. As in, oh yeah, I guess we knew it was going to happen, but we just kind of talked ourselves out of it. But I needed to talk about the strength of this family and how important it is to find people you can really connect and be yourself with. And if you saw the way this family all worked together, just wonderful. I'd love to have, you know, Lori come on as a guest, even Piper, you know, maybe Chloe, which is a little bit older, because they're just such individuals. They're their own people and their family supports it. And I've just been dying to talk about this just because it is such a positive thing for me. I'll end this segment with a little thing that Piper wrote about a week or two after her dad's death. One of Joe and Lori's obsessions was celebrity deaths. And 2016, there was a lot of them. And I remember that, you know, they just were like, when they heard one, they'd be like, oh my God, you know, and it would just be like, they'd be obsessed with it and stuff. And it became, and Lori would be the first to tell you, this is one of their things. Anyhow, apparently Joe has always kind of he's been waiting for Zsa Zsa Gabor for the longest time. Now, I don't know if they bet or put money on this or anything like that, but I guess he's been waiting for Zsa Zsa for a long time. So when Piper saw that Zsa Zsa died a few days after Joe, she wrote a wonderful thing about Joe going up to see God and saying that, God basically said, okay, Joe, since you passed away, you get to pick one celebrity death. So I'm going to read you a list of names on this list, and you pick which one can die. And God started with the list and said Zsa Zsa Gabor. And before he could say another name, Joe just said, no, that one. That one. And that was kind of what happened when I found out about Zsa Zsa's death. That just shows you the dark humor of Piper. It also shows you the dark humor of Joe. Joe would have loved that. Joe would have loved that, and I'm sure Lori and Chloe enjoyed it too. It's just the quirkiness of this family. I plan to stay friends with them as long as they want me in their lives. They certainly have touched me. I hope when, things aren't still an open nerve, they can listen to this, maybe have a few laughs, a few tears, as long as they're laughing by the end of it. That's what I hope. Anyhow, I have been dying to talk about Joe. Maybe not a good term to use, but Joe, I know you're resting in peace and getting to meet a lot of big-name celebrities. So I miss you, and me and a whole bunch of other people are going to take care of your little family just fine. I'm going to go grab a Kleenex, clean up a bit, and talk about something a little lighter. How about the movies I saw in December 2016? I'm back. I cleaned up a bit. I'm doing a lot better. I always said that there's no shame in mourning someone. As if you have sad periods when you think of people that you lost. But my thing is if you think of them in a sad, sad way and you have a good cry, then I recommend that you laugh right afterwards. Yeah, so I think, be sad, but end it with a happy thought. Think of something that'll make you smile, maybe even make you laugh. Anyhow, one thing I do to deal with stuff like that is go to the movies. And as I started doing in September, every time I finish a month, I talk about the movies I saw in that month. And it's weird because I'm doing this a little bit later than I normally would, because I normally do it at the end of December, but I didn't have a show then. And then I did the best of 2016, where a couple of these movies actually showed up in. And but the weird thing is that even though I'm airing this, a couple months after December, a lot of these movies are just now playing in the theater. So you'll be able to catch all three of these movies in theaters, just because we don't release that many movies in the winter period. So I went to see 3 movies in December, and I'm going to start with the big one that pretty much all of you have seen. And if you haven't, don't worry, I'm not going to give any spoilers away. It is Star Wars Rogue One. And this is, of course, the big movie right now. Everybody's checked it out twice, 3, 4 times. I've seen it twice myself. I really like this movie. I didn't love it, I'll be honest with you. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but I did not love this movie. I think it's got some of the greatest... It's probably got the greatest action sequences that we've ever seen in a Star Wars movie, but I couldn't get past the tone of the story. I couldn't get past that it doesn't fit the same style as the other Star Wars movies. And I'm not talking about like the opening crawl not being there or the music being changed up a bit. I'm just talking about overall tone. Did not feel like a Star Wars movie for me. And I don't think it really fits. Now, you can look at something like the Marvel series. They actually have done different styles of movies. Guardians of Galaxy, the Captain America ones have almost gotten a spy espionage feel to them. Doctor Strange was something totally different. Ant-Man was kind of a heist film with comedy in it. But the thing is all those movies, if you watch them back to back, all have the same style and tone. Harry Potter movies, even though I didn't like a lot of the later ones, they had a lot of different directors, but you could watch all of them and it feels like it's the same tone. This to me did not feel like it. This was just an out and out battle movie, but didn't have the character development, the storytelling that I usually get from my Star Wars movies. They're kind of like sudsy soap opera kind of things. And I didn't feel that here. I just felt it was like this bleak war story. Some of the characters were sort of interesting, but I would have liked to be focused on. They went down the same roads for backstories. Again, like, okay, here's a little bit of a spoiler. How many times can a kid in the Star Wars universe be orphaned? How many times do they have to be taken away? Like, it's been done so many times in this universe that it's getting a little crazy. But as I said, I enjoyed the movie for what it was. I also had some problems with it doesn't fit the continuity because this movie takes place right before A New Hope. There are some issues. Now, some of the issues they did fix, which it's nice that they did take the time to fix them. But as somebody who saw this movie as a 9-year-old child and still love it, I didn't ask for any of it to be fixed. And so, don't tamper with my Star Wars, but, just because they had the opportunity, they said, oh, we're going to make this even better. And some of it does work, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I never asked for it to be fixed. They did some things that some people didn't like that I actually did like. They used some CGI on some characters that's all I'll say. I don't want to give away. I think in some cases it was important for the movie. Disney's probably very happy that they captured screen likenesses because this means these movies could go on for a very long time. And as I said, the battle sequences were incredible. But when I think about when they came out with Force Awakens, they gave us characters like Rey and Finn and Kylo Ren, who I think is an amazing villain. Here we have some new people, but I don't know if they think, well, you're not going to see them anymore, or we're not going to put them in another spin-off movie, that we just could throw them away. I'm not saying the actors weren't solid in the roles. I just don't think they were given enough meat. I didn't care if I ever saw these characters again. If they did do a spin-off thing with them or whatever, I just didn't have any feelings. And the second time, I hoped that I would feel those feelings, but I still felt the characters were just a little generic. And I can't help but I had the same problem with Force Awakens on this, is I still feel these Star Wars movies. Yes, George Lucas, if he had an idea, he ran with it and didn't care what anybody thought about it. Not necessarily the best way to go. But I'm not sure Disney's sitting at the table and everybody figuring out exactly what we're going to do for it and throwing anything that we think people and fans will like is necessarily the best way to go. They've had some victories with it. Just because I didn't like Rogue One, some people are touting it as, one of the best Star Wars movies out there. To me, it's a really good movie. It's just not a Star Wars movie to me. You can have familiar characters in there all you want, but if the familiar characters still don't feel like they're in the same universe as the other movies we've seen in the past, it just kind of loses it. You can have tone, you can have everything, but it really bothered me. And I'm probably going to not talk about this movie too much, even though I think I'll be hitting on it a little bit in the next segment. But this is just, to me, I love that people enjoyed it. I love that people are embracing it. I think it's definitely going to cause some trouble for future Star Wars movies in the style that people remember, because if they embrace this so much, they're going to be going back to the original kind of storytelling, and I don't know if they're going to be as satisfied with it or not. But anyhow, I look forward to episode 8 at the end of this year. I can't wait to see what they do to it and to have continuing stories with that. I think this is going to be a really big one because last movie they had a lot of nostalgia to fall back on. And this one, they're really going to have to make it their own, I think. So, but I'm glad you liked Rogue One. If you enjoyed it, as I said, I did enjoy it. There was a lot in it I liked. Is this a movie I'm going to see more times in the theater? Absolutely not. I'll get it on Blu-ray when it comes out and may watch it from time to time, but I don't think I'm going to be watching this as regular. I might just go and skip to some of my favorite scenes. Uh, as I said, I found all the new characters introduced were throwaways, or just a Disney committee just sat around and said, we should have an Asian guy that is blind, but he uses sticks because we've never seen stormtroopers, getting kicked around by an old guy with a stick. Stuff like that, And but it just, to me, it just continues, let's have a robot that's sarcastic, but he doesn't know he's sarcastic, so it's like an autistic robot, and we'll have him say a couple of things that are said in future movies that take away the wanderlust of those movies because they don't feel as original if you watch them in that order anymore. I know they're homages to the old movies, but when you have characters saying stuff that they haven't been said yet in the theory relativity of it all, I don't know, it takes away in my eyes. I like good tributes, but when they don't make sense or don't make timelines, and there's a lot of that in this movie. Anyhow, moving on, because there was two other great movies I saw. These two both showed up in my top 10 at the year end. One's very controversial, so we're going to do that right now. It's Passengers, starring Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. It's a wonderfully idea for a movie, and I won't give away spoilers. But spoilers are where the controversy of this movie comes, and the reason why is because this movie basically is a story about a ship that's flying to a new destination. And they're going to wake up in something like 150 years. And what happens is two of the pods open up early, as in 90 years beforehand. I loved so many aspects of this. The ship was wonderful. I just loved the things you could do on it and the fact that it ran itself. I don't know about the plausibility on that, but they deal with that issue and stuff. I love the two characters. Chris Pratt, I've been a big fan of since, I've seen him in supporting, and then when he finally got his own in Guardians of the Galaxy. I love that he's upped his game. He does play the fun-loving guy, but because this has some serious tones in it, you really see him get to agonize about stuff. And we get to see a side of him that shows that Chris Pratt may have some chops. And it's a really great performance. And Jennifer Lawrence, who always brings her A game, though a lot of people say in the X-Men she didn't really, but I don't believe that at all. She's really good in this movie. The big controversy about this movie, and I won't go too much into it because I did it, the other day, is there's a plot twist, and I'm trying to do it without telling you the plot twist. That is very controversial. And it actually is a big part of the movie, and they do not take it lightly, even though a lot of critics felt this is a horrible plot twist. And some of them have even gone to release their reviews and said that we have to give away the secret in order for people to know what they're getting into. And that to me is absolute bullshit. First of all, it is a huge plot twist, but you know what? It's a good one. And they don't take it lightly. This plot twist is thought about and agonized about. And when it all comes to play out, I don't believe that any of the writer or the director or the actors took it lightly. it's dealt with. It is absolutely dealt with, and you have to deal with the fact that there's only two people that really have to deal with this. Passengers is a wonderful film. It looks great. A lot of people I could see also not liking the final act. It's maybe a little unplausible, but to me, when I go to a movie, I want to just be entertained, and I want to be just absolutely. I just want to be lost in the movie, and I got lost in this world. When the ship starts having little glitches in it, I thought it was done really nice because they give you little hints all the way through the movie before you actually have to deal with it, and so that's quite good. And so I definitely recommend Passengers. I'm sad that so many of you know how it already ends because of critics, but I am not going to be one of those. I'm going to take the high road. The next movie that I saw in December, the last movie I saw of the year, is La La Land, starring Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone. And this is a wonderful film that's already being touted as a possible contender for not only being nominated for the Oscars, but for winning the Oscar. And I actually have a feeling it's got a good chance because if you ever look at how Hollywood does it, they usually go a couple of... There's always the epic films that win, and we didn't have an epic film this year. And then they always have the one movie that is the Hollywood patting itself on its back. And like a movie like Birdman that won 2 years ago. That's, yes, Hollywood is, this is a Hollywood movie. The Artist has won in the past too. And then there's always the big political statement one, like last year Spotlight won. That was politically charged. It was not only politically, but it was like this is our humanitarian. This is the year we have to go humanitarian. So because they did the big Spotlight last year, they need something different. Should have been an epic, but we didn't really have any epic films. So if you ever look back at the Oscars, you'll see I'm right. There's like epic, and then every once in a while they throw in a dark horse to win that nobody saw coming. So if you do the math, La La Land has a good shot of winning because it's not really about Hollywood patting itself on its back, but it's kind of that bittersweet feel-good movie that wins every once in a while. And if they get to throw in a musical once in a while as a winner, that's a plus. It's not like the 60s when they used to just give it to musicals, not necessarily because they were the best films of the year, but because they avoided controversy like The Plague. Like give it to something musical because, Oliver, because of the fact that we can't shed light on these darker toned movies. So anyhow, that's my political statement for that. But it is a lush, beautiful movie, kind of a tribute to old school Hollywood. I wish there was actually more music in this, as in, I wish there was more big production numbers, because when they did the production numbers in there, they are so awesome. The two things, it's almost like two movies because Emma Stone plays a young woman who's desperate to make it in Hollywood. And, she's out doing the auditions and everything. And Ryan Gosling is like kind of this cool, quirky guy who basically wants to make sure jazz lives because he has a beautiful moment where he says jazz is dying and we got to save it. And he describes jazz in such a beautiful way that I think it really touched me. So what you get some great jazz moments and you also get some great performances. But I still wanted more music in this. And that's, it's just because I loved it so much. But the character development in this is incredible. Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone do amazing performances. It basically goes like a fantasy fairy tale and then reality kicks in. That's all I'm going to say. I don't want to kick into it, but basically they win you in this world of, God, I wish this is the way the world was. And then as the movie unravels, you start getting hit home with reality. And I think that's a wonderful take on life. You're dreaming, you're following your dreams, you're falling in love, and everything's perfect in the world, and then reality hits. You start paying bills, you have to do all this other stuff, You start questioning what you love in life, whether people or thing. Just a phenomenal movie, and This one's just hitting theaters because it is only played in small theaters, and now it's, finally going to get some stuff. So definitely run out and check it out. Probably the best performances I've seen from Ryan Gosling, which hard to say because he's done some really epic stuff in Blue Valentine and Drive. And Emma Stone is definitely proving that every time she is in there, she is giving it her all. And I think she is just absolutely beautiful in this movie. And I don't mean just, how good she looks. I mean that she is got this character. She has it. They've worked together before. They definitely have a chemistry, and it shows. Yeah, La La Land. Definitely check it out. It is, if you haven't heard about it that much, you will be, because as we get closer to Oscar time, it's going to be all over the Oscars. I'm sure director, cinematography, soundtrack, maybe even performance. It's hard to say. Best Picture, a definite. In fact, I'll say it here. I think it's a great contender. I think it could win just based on it. I think La La Land has great legs. And when you see the dancing, so many great performances. But when you see A Lovely Night with Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone on the edge of this thing outdoors, and they do this song and dance number, it's just heart aching. It is so good. It just, your heart just wants to like smile really hard, and there's another part of you that wants to get some tap shoes on and join them. Anyhow, that's my look at movies. Hopefully you get out to some. January's not always the greatest time for movie releases, so this is a great time to catch up on some that came out at Christmas that you may have missed. Or, take a look at my best list from last week and catch up on those ones. Anyhow, I'm going to take a small break, then I'm going to get back to some more talking and yakking, and I'm going to talk about a topic. It's probably a little preachy on my behalf, but it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. And yeah, I'll leave it at that, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying the show. It is nice to actually have a show where I can actually just talk about things, and because as I said, the last couple of weeks I've been on hiatus, or I've had other specialty shows, but yeah, I've got a lot of things mulling in my head, and this is one of them. This is probably one of those crazy rants that I get on, and some of you will be like, oh yeah, he's crazy. Others will relate. Whatever. Thanks for listening, whatever the case may be. I recently was on Facebook, and I saw I don't know if it was an article or something, but it basically talked about the older generation versus the younger generation. And normally I'm not a big fan of, the older is better than the younger. And, yeah, I'm older, so I'm obviously got a biased opinion on that. But I like to see the good in the younger, but that's not what this article was about. It's basically, article said something to the likes of, this world doesn't belong to the older generation anymore. And they probably are talking about older than me, but I still felt like it was talking to me in some ways. And they said that the younger generation actually owns this world now, and they may not feel like it, but they know they own it. And that basically, that's why they do some of the things that they do, because they know this world is theirs. And normally it would just be an article I'd look at, and that would be about it. But the wording of it got me thinking a lot, and like a lot. And mostly what I think about is the whole idea of the world isn't mine anymore. And I've been sitting on this for a couple of weeks now, and I'm starting to realize that it's true. I've got to start realizing that, the younger generation, I've probably got a couple generations younger than me now, and they're slowly starting to take over. There's starting to be jobs. I'm starting to have supervisors that are younger than me, and when I go to the doctors, I'm certainly seeing doctors younger than me, where there was, you'll start seeing that time, and it's a weird time. But I remember when we went to see my father when he was in the hospital, and we remember the doctors were all talking to us and stuff, and it made me laugh, because as the doctor left, we realized that we were all older than the Doctor. Like, we thought the Doctor might have looked like he was in his 30s. Still gave him, the respect he deserved, but we were just like, wow, when did doctors become younger than us? Because I remember a time when you'd go to a doctor and always be some old guy or older woman and stuff like that. But that's just not the case anymore. And it's a weird feeling when you go through it. And for any of you who are older, you know what I'm talking about. You know exactly what I'm talking about. And for those of you who are younger listening to this, you'll remember me talking about this as it comes about. Anyhow, getting back to the world doesn't belong to me anymore. I'm going to succumb the world. I'm going to start the new year not thinking the world is mine anymore, though I honestly don't believe I was one of those people that ever thought the world was mine. But I know, like, I never, got out of high school and thought, the world is mine, I can do what I want. I was just never raised or trained that way. And I think, to the most part, even though there are some people who train their kids that way, I still don't think people feel like that. So I relate to the younger generation in that aspect, as in, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just think they have a lot more anxiety and stress because they're forced to, like, what are you going to do after school? What are you going to do? You got to make money. You got to go to this. That's a whole different topic, But a couple of the ways I know this world isn't mine anymore, and I'm ready to succumb to it. I'm ready to realize that I am from old school thinking. It's hard. It's hard when you come to the realization of that, but it is. But two things have happened recently in pop culture, because everything I measure is in pop culture. One is going to see the movie Rogue One. I mentioned last week I was going to talk a little bit about this. And, being a big Star Wars fan, I was, looking forward to seeing it. And please don't get me wrong. I enjoy it very much. It's just I came out of it thinking it was a good movie. And that it really didn't feel too much like a Star Wars movie, except for the fact that there were some Star Wars vehicles, characters that are used in this movie. But I didn't come out saying, oh, that was a Star Wars movie. When I read the reviews afterwards, I was surprised to see people of all ages were saying that this is one of the best Star Wars movies ever made. This is the Star Wars movie we've all been waiting for. This puts the war back in Star Wars. All, legitimate aspirations. And as I know, our reviews are all subjective. But I came out not feeling that way, and I was surprised that, although I did come across a couple of fans who were brought up in my era, as in we saw Star Wars at the movie theater, I was surprised at the amount of people that still embrace this. And I'm not saying they shouldn't. They have every right to love it, like it, whatever you want, but I am glad that I found a couple people that kind of agreed with me, that said it was an okay movie, but didn't feel really Star Wars-ish. But I was surprised at the sheer amount of them that basically said, this is the kind of Star Wars we've been waiting for. And this was one of my first tips that the world didn't belong to me anymore, because this told me, when I think of Star Wars, I was so young and imaginative. Again, I didn't need all my answers answered for me. I didn't need to see big war or people blowing up or something. I had an imagination. So when they said a whole bunch of people died on Alderaan, and I'm not giving any spoilers for Rogue One, but Star Wars A New Hope I'm going to, because it's been long enough. If you haven't seen it yet, you probably won't. I was touched by it. I didn't need to see all that. I didn't need to see it because of my imagination. I know what my guess of how it would feel to kill a whole race of people on a planet. And I remember, though, that the Star Wars movies had a little bit of sadness in it, had some emotion, had some comedy, had some action. And when I watched Rogue One, I just felt there weren't very developed characters. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't think the characters bonded. I thought, the best action sequences I've ever seen in a Star Wars film. But the fact that, people were raving about Rogue One's war battles more than more realistic movie like Hacksaw Ridge kind of disturbed me in a way. It's like people were tearing up during Star Wars Rogue One, but almost had little emotion when they were walking out of Hacksaw Ridge. I personally had tears in my eyes during moments of Hacksaw Ridge. I never felt that kind of emotional bond with any of the characters. To show that I'm not totally just me growing old, when I saw The Force Awakens, even though, I thought Force Awakens was a good film, it was my favorite of the year, I at least bonded with some of those characters like Rey and BB-8 and Finn and even Kylo Ren, who I thought was just an amazing villain. But in this movie, none of these characters had any feel for me. They just seemed to be like storyboards, like these where a group of people got into a room and said, okay, we want another female lead. We need this, we need that, we need this. I didn't feel like it was creative writing. I just felt like it was a committee saying, let's cast a Hispanic character. I like when the characters cast themselves, write a great story and then worry about the casting afterwards. As in, don't write this is going to be a Chinese character. Just write a great character and then have everybody audition for it. But anyhow, when I heard people saying this is the Star Wars we've been waiting for, suddenly I realized that all those people who raved about being Star Wars fans, I started thinking to myself, wait a minute, if you want the film that I just saw in Rogue One, that tells me that you probably didn't really love the original films as much as possible. And I'm not even talking about the prequels. The innocence and sweetness, plus the darkness of the original films, is what makes those films. And there's so much lacking in Rogue One from those original films. Even the prequels had more to bond with. So, I thought of it more like you were playing a video game, but you had no control over the video game. And, I've heard people say they didn't like Star Wars Battlefront, and maybe this is the version they were waiting for, something for the big screen and in IMAX and in 3D. But this was my first guess that this is not my world anymore, was due to the fact that all these people who, for the years, have told me how great the original Star Wars movies were, and then said that this is up there with Empire Strikes Back as one of the best. It really made me wonder, like, have I been watching different movies or watching movies in a different way than anyone else? Because to me, it's like, when you say this is the Star Wars movie I've been waiting for, it was nothing like any of the other Star Wars movies. So to me, it's like, how did you have a fondness for that? So I just thought, well, we're in a video game age. A lot of people my age still play video games, and this is sadly how movie making is going to go now. People want the action. People want the thing, and they are going to believe that, and I God help me, if you got emotional stirrings from Rogue One, then I am fine with that. I'm great. But to me, it was like, I just didn't get it. I didn't see it, and I'm going to succumb. And if we start getting more movies that are more Rogue One instead of what the original trilogy was, I may have to even walk away from Star Wars, which will be hard, but I won't be one of those, oh, they've ruined Star Wars. I'll just walk away from it, because I don't want to see more like that. I want to see storytelling. I want character development. I want sticky soap opera kind of storylines. I don't want just battle, 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 and just enough character development that we can be interested in these people. I want more. So that was one of the ways that I feel that I'm not part of this world. This world isn't mine anymore, is because that's how movies are made now. It's more about action. It's more about that. That's why when a great movie like Hell or High Water or Sing Street come out, where there's so many wonderful characters, it's nice to see people are still seeing them. Gives me hope. But again, These are movies that older people probably saw, not younger people. Anyhow, another one that I've just caught up on Walking Dead, and again, I won't give any spoilers out. But The Walking Dead was another way that I've decided this isn't my world anymore. And I grew up with people loving Darth Vader as a villain, but they still loved Luke and Leia and Han and everything. And I just recently have come to the decision that we really value villains more than heroes nowadays. I started seeing it when Heath Ledger's Joker came about. And I noticed that, although some people talked about Batman, most people just talked about the greatness of Joker and how they praised him, and you'd see more Jokers at Comic-Con than you'd see actual superheroes. So I just caught up to The Walking Dead, the season where Negan shows up, and I love the character Negan. I think he has brought so much, even though he infuriates me because of the sheer amount of characters he has eliminated from the show. And he is a true villain because in some ways I get unnerved when he's on the screen. As soon as I see him, hear him, but at the same time I'm entertained by the performance Jeffrey Dean Morgan gives because he just makes it his own, and he's charming as hell. But I don't really breathe normally until he's done off the screen, because I think somebody's going to die no matter how the scene starts, if he looks like he's in a good mood, bad mood, anything. Then, and I have no problem. I have no problem. They have great storytelling and stuff. But what I've noticed is that over the past couple of months, I started seeing people, even after the cliffhanger when you didn't know who he killed, people started wearing Negan shirts. And they were talking about how traumatized they were that they're going to lose a major character. And as much as I love Negan, I don't think I would wear a Negan shirt because of the sheer amount of death and destruction he things. To me, that would be like wearing a t-shirt of the latest person who shot up someplace. To me, it would be like promoting evil. And I know, there's nothing wrong with, being a fan of Darth Vader or the Joker or Negan even. But when I start seeing younger people starting to wear, Negan shirts or praising him for what he's done, going into Giant Tiger and they've got Walking Dead shirts, but all you can get are zombies and Negan. And the fact that they sell out almost immediately. Imagine if you changed your profile picture to some tragedy happened in the world where, a whole bunch of people were murdered. And you put your profile pic supporting the person who did the violence. To me, that's kind of the same thing. It's almost like we, as much as a whole as we put down violence, I think we sort of embrace it. I think the movie Natural Born Killers, one of my all-time favorite movies. I love this movie. And I'll admit, I was engrossed by it. But I also know when I watch Mickey and Mallory, that they're the villains, and I know that the movie is done in a sarcastic tone, but I think they got it right. How we embrace the violence, and even though we're offended by it, we revel in it too. It's kind of like in Facebook when people are against animal abuse, but they still put pictures of abused animals up. You don't need to do that. You could put a nice status about not hurting animals. Instead, you put a picture of a bear with a chain through its nose. Or, here's a beaten dog. Recently, there was a special needs person who was tortured, and he was filmed, I believe, on Facebook. My facts might be wrong. And it was all over the place. But the most shocking thing was was the amount of people who actually watched the torturing of this kid. Um, I don't think you need to watch the torture. When I read a story like this, I get enough cringing in my thing, and I realize it's bad. But the fact that so many people had to run out and not only watch it, but share it with a little thing that says, "Oh, I'm appalled by this. What's the world coming to?" If you ever see that on any of my statuses, if I'm making a comment, you will not see me post a link to see it, or show a picture of it, or promote the people who did it. I can be appalled, I can be saddened, I can be everything, but the fact when you keep reposting that, it's just, you're getting off on it too. This is not you dealing with violence. You're appalled by it, but you want to appall other people. You want to be the person that people click on to be like, "Oh, you're right, that's horrible. Oh, that's horrible." It's kind of like when you hear a person die. Some people are just anxious to tell anyone they can because they want to be the ones to let bad news happen. So when I see a younger generation just wearing Negan shirts, and like here's a man who's responsible for taking away some of your personal favorite good guys. The more we promote bad guys and stuff like that, and I know he's just a character on a TV series, and he was in a comic book before he was on a TV show, but still, I don't want to be a part of this world anymore. You know, as I said, I grew up with kids worshiping Darth Vader, but we also worship the heroes too. We worship everything as a whole. Now you see kids are just all about the Joker or Harley Quinn. It refreshes me when I see kids embracing Wonder Woman or Superman or Batman or Spider-Man or anything like that. They are still out there. But as a whole, like we have to show how dark we are because our heroes are dark ones. Well, this isn't my world anymore, and I don't want this world. The more I get to know it, the more as I get older and I find out more about it, I'm fine with you taking it over. I will still search out those movies that make me smile or entertain me without having to be realistic or have to have the most awesome battle scenes ever, because I have an imagination. I can work with anything and all. That's why people read, because they don't have to see it. They can visualize it. Anyhow, I don't know if I proved any kind of point in this, but this is where my head's at. It's not my world anymore. I can live with that. I'm dealing with that for the last couple of weeks, and I think I'm okay walking away from it. I've got lots more I want to talk about. Tune in for the weeks ahead. I'm hoping to have some more guests. Don't know if I'm going to do anything special at 100, but we will see. It's coming up. Anyhow, thank you if you listened and made it through to the end. It means the world to me. I love you, and I will see you all very, very soon.